Hello, and welcome to Awkward Family Conversations, where we try to help millennials and Zoomers figure out how to do life. I'm here with my dad, Rhett, who is a exceptionally timely person, much to his own chagrin when the rest of the family is not. Except for today, when I actually beat him onto the Zoom call when I was already 5 minutes late. Hi, Dad.
Yeah, it's true. I like to be on time, but I was conversing with Mr. Manis, and so I was a little delayed, as you might imagine. So very
I
good.
can imagine that.
Yeah, yes, you can. You know, Mr. Manis.
Yes.
Very good. Hello, Ed. I would like to introduce my daughter, Addie. She is a fairly recent graduate of Belmont University, coming up on almost a year. And her thesis for her graduation has been downloaded over 500 times already. 82% of those downloads from commercial entities, 2% from government, and 16% from education institutions. And what was your thesis on, Addie?
It's called The Perceived Effect of Transformer Core Metal on Complex Musical Sounds.
The perceived effect of
Transformer core metal.
Transformer core metal. What is transformer core metal exactly?
The core metal used to make transformers.
And what is a transformer?
I
mean, it's an Autobot.
40-page thesis.
It's either going to be an Autobot or a, what's the other
Unfortunately, one? Not an Autobot. I'm still kind of bummed because usually the requirement for graduating with the thesis is then you have to do a presentation. And I was really looking forward to hosting a convo, which is what one of the options was, and calling it Transformer Sounds, and having a bunch of people show up really excited to learn about Transformers, and then opening it with a picture of Transformers and being like, so this is actually not what we're talking about today. Right. We're talking about my super boring electrical engineering thesis. But essentially a transformer is an electrical engineering device that can either boost or decrease the voltage from one part of a circuit to the next, or keep it the same and move out some isolation sounds.
And what is complex musical notes?
Complex musical waveforms is essentially not a sine wave, but a combination of many sine waves that ends up in the waveform that makes up a guitar note. Is a complex waveform.
I see. So you had a 40-page thesis downloaded over 500 times
about that.
Transformer core metals and perceived complex musical notes.
Yes.
All right. Very
good. Or their perceived effect on complex musical notes. So. Yeah, very basically, good. Does it sound warmer when it's steel? The answer is yeah.
Oh, okay. Probably. Well, there you go. Steel as opposed to catgut or nylon or
nickel.
Nickel.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Well, as fascinating as that is, I'm not sure people are here to learn about that. Although maybe we can have a future episode devoted to it, and we can you can take us through your convo of the Transformers.
No.
All right.
Please God.
Well, that could be downloaded 500 times, which would well exceed our total downloads so far of Awkward Family Conversations. So,
yeah.
Anyway, what are we going to talk about today, Ed? What's our topic for today?
Today we are talking about the perceived effect of Transformer core. No, we are talking about how should I behave at business functions.
How should we behave at business functions? That is an excellent.
Not had to do much of because it's a pandemic outside.
Well, that's true, but you will. You will. You can't work for an organization and avoid. Well, you can, but it's probably not a good idea, and avoid the functions and events that go along with that. So, when you think of business function, what do you think about? What is a business function to you?
Thing that jumps to mind is the only kind of business functions I've been to, which have been like Christmas parties, work Christmas parties.
Yeah. That's a big one, right? The social events. And really, when we think about, this question, it really is more about the social piece, because everybody kind of knows how to behave at a business function when it's about the business. So it's really more, how do you manage and how do you merge those sort of social, what's the etiquette for social behavior at a business function? And when you say what's a business function, you think of Christmas parties and everything. But I would say that a business function is basically any function or event that includes people you work with. So it could be a party. You could be going to a party, and if it's with your coworkers, you might want to think about that being a business event, because people aren't going to separate their perceptions of you and the impressions of you based on whether you're behaving, whether your behavior is demonstrated at work or in your or in a social setting. People that you work with can be your friends, and you can do things with them as friends, but they're going to take that back to the business environment, and they're going to take the knowledge and their experiences with you, wherever they occur, back to that business environment. So whether you're on a raft trip or some kind of Christmas party, or another thing is often somebody will, your company, your organization will sponsor a table at a charitable event, and so you show up there to hear a speaker. There's going to be a lot of those kind of situations, and the perception of you in totality, regardless of the setting, is going to be part of how people think about you. And when they're in the work setting and making decisions about a work, about responsibilities, promotions and levels, transfers, special projects, all of those things, that sum total of their experience and their knowledge about you, regardless of where those impressions came from, are going to be part of the decision-making process that they make. So, you don't turn off your perceptions of your coworkers after hours. You're going to see them behave in ways in various settings. And when you come back to the workplace and people are considering, okay, do we want Addie on that special project? A lot of the question will be, well, what does Addie bring? And if the answer is, well, Addie doesn't control herself when it comes time to really let loose. She's loud and she's crazy and she does all these things. It's kind of like, well, is that the person we want running this project? And so a business function really is any place where there's people you work with. And that's an important thing to remember. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't cut loose, that you can't have friends from the workplace that you do things with, but recognize that there is career risk in any place where you have people you work with, because that what happens at those events is part of the work record, and people will remember that and will judge you on that, on those things. So just kind of keep that in mind. A business function really is any event that has people from work. Does that make sense to you?
Sure does.
And what's your reaction to that?
It's a reaction. Dog. Is it a mailman or is it mom?
The audio intern here has decided she's going to interrupt.
A much more disruptive audio intern.
Yeah, she's somebody walked by the front.
Did you stop recording?
No.
No. I don't have the little bubble anymore.
No, we're still going. Okay. We're still recording. So maybe you can cut that out of the audio feed.
Maybe I do. Our YouTube listeners will get it though.
Yes, YouTube. That's the special video. We don't edit the video, so very good. So anyway, what is your reaction to the recognition that anywhere there's somebody from work is a business function?
I think my coworkers think I'm real fun.
Well, and that's, and by the way, that's pretty much how most people are, especially young in their career. I mean, this is why we're talking about it, right? I mean, we're having this because
I do have boundaries though. I will go out and be a bit crazier with my vet tech friends who are my age, who are like friends, and we go out and tell each other deep emotional personal things, and they're not really in control of my career kind of thing.
Right.
And I have one doctor that I'm friends with like that, but pretty much any other doctor or an older vet tech, someone who's in their 30s or 40s, I probably wouldn't go out with the way that I go out with my 25-year-old vet tech friends.
Yeah. Totally understandable. Recognize though that, especially at a company where you're going to stay there for a while, is that your current vet tech friends might get promoted to be your boss one day. Yeah. And they're going to take all that knowledge about you with them into that new situation.
I know things about them too.
Yes, you do. And you're going to make your
disruption.
You're going to make sure, I mean, if you get promoted, you're going to be bringing all of that knowledge to your decisions as well. So anyway, good rule of thumb, so 2 minutes of internet research this week. I went to resumeperk.com, The Balance SMB, which is smallbusiness.com, and monster.com. So we had, there's quite a bit of literature or digital literature anyway out there on how to behave at corporate events or at company events, organization events, and there was actually a pretty good consensus, and a lot of this stuff makes sense, and you'll hear it, and it makes sense just how to behave generally speaking when you're in public. But the general rule of thumb is when you're at a business function and anywhere where there's people that you work with, stay relaxed. You don't need to be uptight. You don't need to be overthinking and too crazy, because again, this is the social side. Even though there is a business dimension, there's this social element to it. Stay connected with the people that you're engaged with. You don't want to be standing off alone in the corner, because that sends a message as well. And make the event as comfortable as possible for other people, for the people who are there. That's a good way. I mean, it's a good way to live your life. But it's a good way at work functions is to, not antagonize people, not provoke people, not overreact or overbehave. Just kind of stay in control. Stay in control. Be aware of what's happening. So stay connected and relax. It is a social setting. You don't need to overthink this. You don't need to go crazy, but you don't need to go crazy. So this isn't the time. If you're out with work friends, it's probably not the time to really experiment with ecstasy or go out and get absolutely hammered so that you're throwing up in the cab on the way home or anything like that. So those are the kind of the things that you can do those things with your friends, but you may not maybe not with the people that you work with. So do a little bit of risk analysis there and figure out, what's appropriate. So let's talk about, kind of different types of events and different things about events, and why you want to behave certain ways or others. So usually an event, there's an invitation that comes to an event. Put it on your calendar. Usually has information about what that event is. And it typically requires an RSVP, because like any event, they need to know how many people are coming so they can accommodate it. And so when you get the message, when you get the invitation, RSVP as quickly as you can. So as soon as you know whether you can attend or not, then RSVP and let them know, hey, okay, I'm in, or I'm not going to be able to make it. Typically for work events, it's a good idea if you show up. Careers are not just about the hard production. It's also about how well you work with other people, how well you interact with other people. And these social settings, even though they're in business context, can give more information about you to your colleagues, your managers, the leaders of the company. It can give them more information, and you want that information to be positive and perceived as a positive way. So if you're responsive, when you get an invitation, you respond quickly, and you show up. I mean, they're putting on these events for a reason, and the events are there to celebrate occasions, to communicate new ideas, to do team building kind of exercises. There's a lot of reasons to do these things, and you should participate in them if as much as you possibly can. Obviously, if you've got surgery scheduled or you're going to be on vacation, those are things that you can with a good conscience say, hey, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to make this. But typically, if it's more like I really don't want to go out on a Wednesday night, or geez, I don't really want to hang out with these people because I don't know them very well, not really good reasons to miss those things. So go to the events as much as you can, and let people know, honor, respect the hosts and the people who are organizing the events is by giving them an answer as quickly as you can. So what do you wear to these events, Ed? What do you think? Are you putting on the slinky evening dress for your your holiday party? No?
I'm a big fan of the conservative skirt and sweater look.
Yeah. It's a professional setting, right? This is not the time to pull out your I'm going to say Miami Vice jacket, but you don't know what that is. So, it was a TV show in the 80s with Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas, and they were homicide detectives in Florida, and they were, they always showed up with the suits and very glamorous clothes all the time, even though they were cops and could never have afforded it on their salaries. But yeah, I mean, basically, follow the directions in the invitation when the invitation comes. It should tell you, especially like holiday parties and things like that, it'll be, business casual or business formal or formal wear, and whatever it is, dress that way, but also recognize that it is a professional, it's a business function. So you don't want to be, with the big scoop back dress. You don't want to be with a form fitting sweater or things like that. You want to be modest, clean, professional, and appropriate for a professional setting. Because again, when you're with people from work, you want to be seen as somebody who's serious about their career. This isn't the time to show off your body or to cut loose and show everybody how well you dance, and that's not what these functions are really about. So so you want to dress appropriately, conservatively, or at least moderately conservative. And when in doubt, think about the workplace and how you and who you work with and what that is. If you're in a real casual environment where you can wear jeans and t-shirts to work, maybe you don't want to wear that, but a polo shirt and khakis might work. On the other hand, if you're in a place that requires a suit, then that's probably the minimum standard for the social things as well. Or maybe you show up in a suit but not wearing a tie. So, and that's an easy one because you can always put your tie in your pocket and show up with the tie.
It's easier for men than it is for women.
It is. That's fair. That is fair. But women can have suits, and depending on blouses and jewelry and stuff, you can dress them up or dress them down. So
my pro tip is have a couple of your coworkers' numbers, text them, strategize. Multiple of you show up in the same rough zone of clothing. That way none of you stands out.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. Well, I remember when you went to somebody's house and were underdressed for a thing, and you remembered that, okay, I've got some things. If I tuck in my shirt, it's going to look a lot sharper. And you were in middle school, I think, and we'd given you a book for Christmas about the ferocious girls or whatever. And one of the tips was, if you find yourself where you feel like you're underdressed, here are some strategies for you. And you actually used them and came home and felt pretty good about it. So, but yeah, the strategizing ahead of time, talking, comparing notes, and deciding on a middle course of action. The middle course of action is always a good one. If you show up in a tuxedo or an evening gown and everybody else is kind of, business casual, you're going to stand out. But if you have a suit and not wearing a tie, then you'll stand out a little bit, but not very much. At the same time, if you show up in jeans and t-shirts and flip-flops, and everybody's in business casual, you're going to stand out as well. But if you show up in a polo shirt and chinos or khakis, then you'll stand out a little bit on the casual side, but not dramatically. So middle ground is always a good place to go if you're uncertain. So when is you want to be fashionably late to these things, Ed? Do you want to be super early? Do you want to show up well ahead of time, showing everybody how anxious you are to get there? No. The time that they tell you to get there. Now it's different if you're a host. I mean, if you're part of the team that's putting on an event, you want to arrive early enough to be able to contribute to whatever needs to happen before that. But let's just assume you're a guest at one of these events. You want to get there within 15 minutes of the start time. You can be a little bit early, but not much. They're typically, it's not unusual for business functions to include a check-in, and you might get a name tag that you'd have to wear. And so, be prepared for that. Wear something where you can either clip one of the name tags on, or if it's a sticker, I wore once a leather jacket that I put a sticker on, and when I peeled off the sticker, it took a lot of the stain out. So now my leather jacket has a name tag sized light spot right over my heart where I put that sticker. So, kind of think about that. Recognize that, okay, might get a sticker, might get one of these little clip-on plastic lanyard type things that I need to put on with my name so people can talk to me. So make sure you're wearing something that can accommodate that too. So when you think about what you're wearing, try to think you might be wearing a name tag. So wear something that can work with that. As you check in, and plan to stay for the time noted on the invitation. If the time is 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, get there at 4 or as close to 4 as you can, and plan to stay to pretty much 6. You don't have to stay late. In fact, you don't want to stay late. You don't want to be the person that closes it down. So pay attention as people are leaving. You don't want to be the last one out the door, but you definitely want to be there for the time or the bulk of the time that other people are there. One, it's polite. They're setting an expectation of the time in the invitation, and two, it is a work event, and you'll have the opportunity to talk to a lot of people from work, and probably a lot of different people than the people you'd normally talk to. So take advantage of this and this social time, and and plan to stay that home. Do you want to bring a guest to any of these business functions, Ed? Are you going to bring somebody along with you?
I mean, if it's expected of me, or like, I've gotten one invitation to a Christmas party that I was going to be out of town for that explicitly said +1 for Addie and guest. And then all the other Christmas parties I've been to for work have been very casual situations of course, you and whatever my boyfriend's name at the time is will be there. It's like, oh, okay, you expect him. But it's going to be something that I'm like, can I bring my boyfriend?
Yeah. Don't ask. Never ask. And they will tell you if it's allowed, or let you know. Excuse me, or let you know in another way whether that's appropriate. And read between the lines. There's don't ask. Assume if it's not mentioned, assume that they're not expecting you to bring a guest. Christmas parties, oftentimes companies are like, yeah, bring a guest. We want you and your partner, because I work for companies who always say, when it's you, it's also your partner. Because your partner's giving you the kind of emotional support, the support that you need to be effective in your role here, and we want to acknowledge that support that your partner's giving you by having them come and celebrate with us at this time. So Christmas parties, holiday parties, 4th of July, those kind of things, often will have guests, but they'll tell you, feel free to bring a guest. Whether you bring one or not, though, you need to be aware that it's not just about bringing a guest. The guest is going to reflect on you, and you need to prepare your guest so that they make a good impression. You don't want to show up and have somebody be surly or feel left out and be obviously left out. Somebody who's not going to engage and talk with other people. So if they're really shy, if your partner's really shy in situations like this, maybe you say, you know what, they're allowing me to take a guest, but I'm not comfortable bringing a guest because it's just too much maintenance for me. And you've got to shepherd your guest through these events. The guest is yours, and it's your responsibility to make sure that they are involved and participating, and they need to recognize that that's an expectation that you have. So if the invitation allows it, definitely bring a guest, but make sure you prepare your guests. So tell them about the organization, the key people in your organization, the people that you're going to be introducing them to, so that they have a way to say, oh yeah, Addie was telling me that you did X, Y, and Z, or you're the person that Addie works with on that project, or that, that procedure, or whatever it is. And also let them know your expectations for their behavior. They're not there to get plastered and to gorge themselves on the buffet. They need to show restraint. And again, same behavior we talked about with you. Stay in control, stay relaxed, participate, stay engaged. Your expectation for your guest needs to be the same. That we're going to this thing. I'm happy to have you as my guest, but my expectations are that you're going to behave well. You're going to behave, in a controlled way, and you're going to be happy to be there, and that'll help. That'll reflect on me in my workplace. So, definitely bring a guest if it's allowed, and you can manage the guest and feel comfortable that the guest is not going to either embarrass you or create problems that you're going to have to address, in your workplace. So you walk into your event, and regardless of the event, whatever it is, how do you greet the people that are there? Is it a big back slap and a hug, or is it a very curt nod? I mean, how do you greet people when you're at a business function?
I love a wave. I really
do. A wave? All right.
I love a wave with a name.
Oh.
Hi, Jesse, kind of thing.
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Typically you can't go wrong with a handshake. I mean, that's kind of in the business world, that's fine. In nonprofit organizations and stuff, maybe. A hug, if you know them really, really well and you've done it before, is not always out of line, but a safe bet is extend the hand, say something very quick and polite, nice to see you again if you've met them before, or pleasure to meet you, or hello, how are you? Keep it simple, keep it short, but and handshake, maybe a wave if that's a generational thing. Just say hey if you're across the way a little bit. Certainly at times of COVID, maybe we're not doing the handshake, but keep the greeting short, professional, and safe. This isn't the time to be going with the high fives and the chest bumps and the bro hugs and stuff like that. This is a professional, it's a business function. A handshake and how do you do is exactly where you want to be. So we talked about having a guest. Oftentimes, or a lot of times, you'll be working with people who haven't met other people in the organization that you might know. And so, when either you're being introduced or you're introducing somebody to somebody else, how do you manage that? How do you so you're in a group and somebody comes up and you've got a colleague from work who hasn't met a different colleague from work. How do you manage that introduction? What do you how do you get them to connect?
In all honesty, I've never been in that situation before.
Okay, fair enough. So here's a hint. Typically, the more junior person is the one who gets introduced to the more senior person. So understand your org chart. If you've got the president of the company and you have an intern, you don't say to the president of the company, "Oh, president of the company, meet Addie the intern." What you do is you say, "Addie, let me introduce you to the CEO of our company, the president of our company." You want to show deference to seniority, and whether that's organizational seniority in the org chart or whether it's just tenure, right? Tenure based. If you have a less tenured person, introduce the less tenured person to the more tenured person. It shows respect, shows deference to the experience and the positional authority in the organization. So, it's easier. I mean, if you have a rule about that, it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. Is it kind of like, oh, this is, the resistance to that is, well, hey, we're all people, we all have value. But remember, this is a business function. And in a business, there's an organizational structure, and people that have more responsibility are there because they have more experience. They're stronger in the areas they need to be. They've demonstrated their talents over time, and that deserves deference and respect in that kind of setting. And so you always want to, like I say, you always introduce the junior person to the senior person, not the other way around, because you want to show respect to the senior person. You want to show them that you're bringing somebody to them as opposed to taking them to somebody else. So a little subtle, but best way to do that is just remember, newer and more junior people get introduced to the older and more senior people. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Kind of,
I think I do that on like a subconscious level. It tends to be how I function. But again, the only places I've been to like work Christmas parties have been at like restaurants.
Yeah, and that's fine. I mean, you want to do those, you want to do those sorts of things, but it does kind of go against your inner communist, where you get the sense that people have different value. But remember, as a business setting, and people do have in this context, there is different value. The intern is not going to have the same impact as the CEO, and so we have to recognize that there is a difference in value, not in the human value, but in the company value or in the organization value. So when you're at these parties or these functions, these charitable events or these team building exercises, who do you talk to? Who should you talk to? You want to hang around with people that you know? Do you want to go big game hunting and start talking to all the executives? I mean, who do you talk to at these places?
All of the people.
You want to mix it up. Mix it up. I mean, you definitely do not want to go big game hunting. You don't want to just kind of focus all your attention on senior executives, and you'll see people who will do that. They see an opportunity. You don't get an opportunity in a lot of times to talk to senior executives. And some people will say, I've got to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm not going to see the senior executive very often. And I've got, 2 or 3 of them in one place. So I'm going to put myself in front of that person and just kind of staple myself to their elbow and just hang with them all day so they get to know me. Well, that's incredibly annoying because an executive is going to try to make the rounds. I mean, leaders of a company recognize that everybody contributes and they want to talk to a bunch of different people. So take your turn. Don't ignore the executive, but don't don't try to monopolize the executive either, because that'll become very apparent and you're going to get known as a brown noser or as just somebody who's really irritating, because these executives need to make the rounds. They want to talk to a bunch of different people and kind of get a bunch of different perspectives, connect with a bunch of different relationships. They don't need somebody hanging on them all night. By the same token, don't hang out with the people that you know solely. This is me. I go to a function like this. I find my team and I stay with them the entire time because I'm not super comfortable talking to people I don't know. So even if you feel like that, if you're an introvert like I am, or like we are, I guess, find a group that's got people you know and people you don't. And so maybe it's just two people who are talking and you know one of them but not the other. Go over there, use the knowledge that you have, the relationship you have with the existing person that you know, and get them to introduce you to the other person. And then you've got a kind of a three-way conversation. You've made a new connection. That's really what these events are for. These are social events in a business setting, and you're trying to broaden relationships or deepen relationships. I mean, that's what we do in social settings, broaden or deepen relationships. So, go up to somebody you know who's talking to somebody you don't know and get introduced. Great way, low pressure way to make that introduction. And even if it's hey, pleasure to meet you. I've heard about it. I've heard about you from so and so, or did you work on that? You were part of the marketing team. Did you work on that last campaign? Some way to make that connection to the introduction. And make sure that you talk and engage. I mean, these are social events. That means don't stand in the corner and be on your phone texting your sister or your friends who aren't at the party. And certainly don't be posting stuff on social media about the party and everything. You're there to talk. You're there to interact with people from work. So do that and mix it up. Talk to the people you know. Have them introduce you to people you don't know. Definitely make yourself known to the executives. Talk to the executives. Talk to the host. Thank them. Introduce yourself if you haven't to an executive, or have somebody introduce you. That's all great. But definitely mix it up and keep moving around. This isn't a place to just sort of hunker down and settle in one place. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Is that something you feel like you would do?
Yeah, I'm pretty social at events. I don't tend to cling on to one person as much.
And you don't sit in the corner on your phone?
No, it's not really my vibe.
Very good. So we talked about who you should talk to. Let's talk about how you talk to people. Is this the time to be boisterous and loud? Is this time to just sort of be quiet and sit and whisper and kind of keep a low profile?
This is time for your most PG funny anecdotes.
Yeah. Yes, it is the middle road. Again, you don't want to be super shy. You don't want to sit in the corner. You want to definitely engage, but you want to, when you stay engaged, eye contact, all the things, good body language, relaxed body posture, active listening, and then contribute, talk, add something to the conversation. And again, you don't have to dominate the conversation. In fact, you don't want to dominate the conversation. You want to be respectful, but you want people to know that you're there. And the fact is you have something to contribute. So find a way to add something to any conversation, even if it's just a sly joke. Again, PG rated, and not making fun of anybody. I mean,
puns are a fantastic work humor. I just gotta say, making puns, excellent work humor.
Yeah, if you can do that. I'm not a pun guy at all, so I would struggle in that situation. But and my biggest problem is I laugh very loudly, and that can be a little overwhelming for people. So I have to dial back the laugh in these kind of situations, so I'm not just bursting out in laughter. Because I have been in situations where I burst out in laughter and had everybody in the room turn and look at me. And that's not, you don't want that kind of attention. You want to laugh, you definitely want to enjoy it, but remember, stay in control. No big things one way or the other. And be polite. You don't monopolize the conversation. You're not going to dominate. You're not swearing. You're not yelling. You're not whispering. You're just having a very nice, pleasant conversation with people. You're adding your part and you're letting them do their part. And you're open and engaged in that conversation. You're fully present. You're not on your phone. You're not, you're not thinking about other things. This is a time to be with your coworkers in a social situation, and you want to be respectful and demonstrate that with your behaviors there. So you're at a work setting. This is a work event. Do you want to be talking about religion, politics, sex, things like that? You
My
do.
favorite thing to do when I meet the executives at my work is to walk up to me like, hey, hi, I'm Addie. I'm a communist. Let's talk about how you're exploiting the working class.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. That's the kind of thing that executives love, those kind of ambush questions that, yeah. Yeah, most conversations in these, at these functions tend to be, because again, this is about broadening and deepening relationships. They tend to be about work. They can be a little bit about family. They can be a little bit about vacations or hobbies. Those are all great things to learn about each other. But remember, when you're at work, when you're working with people, you're there for a specific purpose. You've all come together to bring veterinary care to your community, or financial services to your community. You don't have to agree on politics. You don't have to agree on sports teams. You don't have to agree on religion to be able to do that. Bringing those things into the workplace that could cause conflict could get in the way of the common goals that you guys have in the organization you're in that you're trying to achieve. You should really only talk about those things that don't get in the way of that common goal you're trying to achieve. It doesn't really matter.
Definitely not talk about your political opinions while you have your assistant restraining a 60-pound dog and cannot escape.
Correct. I mean, that's just not business function. That actually is the function of business. And things, you don't have to agree on politics. You don't have, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Green Party, whatever is irrelevant to providing veterinary care.
Agree, and you also probably don't.
Right. Well, yeah.
It's kind of a rule of thumb is assume that nobody is of the same opinion of me, so I'm not going to say it.
Exactly. There's no reason for it because it has nothing to do with delivering veterinary care to the citizens of Nashville. You don't need to agree on, whether Trump is an idiot or whether Biden doesn't know what he's doing. You don't need to agree on that. You can still deliver veterinary care to Nashville, and you can each have those different opinions, and it won't matter. So don't bring up stuff that's gonna antagonize or cause conflict. So personal finance, hey, how much money are you making? Or geez, what kind of investments are you in? Maybe not a place where you want to go. Anything about money is kind of is probably a no-go, especially around your own person. Trying to get information about other people's personal finances, probably not where you want to be. Personal health, yours. Yeah. I'm sorry.
However, I said work functions, probably not a great idea. However, I think it is actually very important to talk to your coworkers and your peers about how much they're making in respect to you.
But not at a business function. Not at a business function.
Not at a function, but that is an important conversation to have, but not there at that time.
I agree. Yeah, I mean,
one-on-one is a great way to have that conversation if it's just the two of you to discuss.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I'm making. I want to make sure that we're open about this on the same level, because this is how I found out that a male coworker of mine who had the exact same professional experience coming into my current job started at 50 cents higher than I did.
Yeah. And that's very common. I mean, people will bring in people. I mean, companies bring in people all the time at different levels because of past income, past pay levels. And that's not right, but companies do that all the time because it's kind of about, what you accept as well. And so, and people undervalue and overvalue their skills and contributions, so that, the salary negotiations often create a dissonance there. And I agree. I always was pretty open with my colleagues about what I made and what they talked about what they made. And, it definitely helps. I mean, a company has full knowledge about what they're paying you. Mm-hmm. You should know what they're, we only know what they're paying ourselves unless we share that information. So I have no problem sharing compensation information with colleagues. And I encourage people to do that.
One-on-one in private or in a small group setting is the ideal place to do it, where you're just around your peers, maybe not in front of senior executives at a party.
No, not in front of your managers. And I would say even one-on-one, I don't think you want to put pressure on somebody who's not comfortable sharing that information. If you've got 2 or 3 people around you who are sharing the information and they may feel obligated to share, or they're just not comfortable sharing it for whatever reason, either because it's too high or higher or lower, dramatically higher, and you don't want to embarrass anybody either. But it's important to have information like that. So definitely one-on-ones is how we always did it. But I shared that with all of my colleagues one-on-one, and I knew where they were and they knew where I was, and it definitely helped. Most of the time we were pretty comparable, but not different enough that it would matter. But it did, but we paid attention to that. So yeah, so personal health is another thing. Hey, let me tell you about this mole on my eyebrow. Not really appropriate for the business setting. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with our shared goal of bringing veterinary services to Nashville. Topics like politics.
How much or what people are eating is not a good thing to mention. As someone who has a lot of dietary restrictions, nothing gets me angry at work situations more than people making a comment about what I'm eating.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, it's not polite to talk about, what you're drinking or eating or anything else, right? I mean, that's your choice. And I'm not going to go up to guys and say, boy, you got enough wings on that plate? I mean, that's probably not super helpful.
Appropriate to say, yeah, those wings are really good.
Yeah. Oh, I see you like wings too, or something like that. Fine. But stay away from judgmental kind of things. And politics, religion, social conflicts, and things like that. Stay away from those kind of things. And definitely do not gossip. This is not the place to say, hey, did you hear about Addie and what she did the other day? Not business functions. I mean, we talked about it in prior podcasts, prior episodes. Gossip is not very helpful to really anything. And don't start. Don't go down that road anyway. But especially not at a business function where you can. It's hard to know when you start talking about people. You don't know the connections and the back, what's going on behind the scenes, and it can get very embarrassing very quickly. And it can also just label you as somebody who is pretty petty, who's focusing not because again, people's personal behavior. Does it really stop us from being able to provide veterinary care for citizens for our community in Nashville? It doesn't. Did you hear so-and-so's dating so-and-so? That has nothing to do with, how we run a business.
Is something that is preventing them from providing veterinary care. You should probably talk to them or your manager.
Yeah. I mean, if it is, if there's something in there that's, maybe not, that's bothering you, there are channels, and it is not at a business function, in a social setting, in a business function is probably not the right time to address some of those concerns. Right. Exactly.
So the audio intern has arrived.
Oh, good. Hi, Claire. So, when you're in these social settings in a business context, when do you defer to other people, and when do you take initiative, right? When do you let other people drive, and when do you decide that you're going to take control? What do you?
I mean, it depends on the situation. Like if I'm in a group of people and the host is also there and we're like, is it cool to get seconds? And they're like, maybe not, then. But if it's a group of people and we're all about the same level and we're like, I don't want seconds. I don't know. Is anybody? That's when I'm kind of like, I'm going to go get some more carrots.
Yeah, definitely defer to your host. The host is the one who's organized the event. If the host wants to, do something a certain way, don't make a hassle. Don't suggest other things. Just do what the host is asking you to do. But definitely defer to the host. If the host wants to, take control of a conversation, let the host do that. If the host, basically it's the host event. Let the host run the event the way he or she wants to, and be supportive of that. Just defer. Don't make an issue. Don't try to fight it. Just let it be. Also, people who are more senior to you in the organization. We talked about this a little bit earlier about, when you introduce people, people who are more senior in the organization are there because of, their experience, the talents that they have, the tenure that they've got, the knowledge that they've obtained through the years. And, they have higher value and they have probably more to contribute. So even though this is a social setting, it's still in a business context, and you should defer to those leaders and to those people, recognizing that they have that value to the business that's more, and therefore you want to defer to them. So again, if they want to talk about something, if they want to set the conversation, set the topic, a conversation, then go with it. Don't fight them on it. Don't try to change the subject to something that you want to talk about. This still is, even though it's a social thing going on, it's still in a business context. And so honor those folks. Also take care of the people that are junior or who are new to the organization that are around you. Try to help them engage in the conversation. So, take the initiative when somebody, if you see somebody at a table or you're in a conversational group and they're not contributing, ask them, draw them out. That's where you take initiative. And that's true really, regardless of whether they're more senior or less senior to you. If they're not contributing to the conversation, help them out. Ask them questions, draw them into the conversation. That's where you take initiative, is by pulling people together when things aren't firing. if things are going along well and you've got somebody facilitating, a host or a senior person, or even somebody, your peer who's facilitating, don't fight them on that. But when conversation lags, or there's somebody who's not fully participating, that's when you take initiative and try to bring a new topic of conversation to the group. Try to bring in new people, try to bring the people in who aren't talking, try to help them out. So that's kind of when you should take the initiative, is when you have those when you have those kind of situations. Now let's talk about eating and drinking, because that's often a thing, right? Is this the place where you want to keep going back to the bar for your gin and tonics because it's an open bar and the company's paying?
Probably not.
Definitely not.
Do I want to? Yes. Am I going to? No.
Yeah, this is a business context. This isn't the place to get hammered. You don't want to be poured into an Uber on the way to get you home because you can't drive yourself. That's the quickest way to put you on the naughty list at work, is by taking advantage of the situation. Essentially, the company is providing drinks and food, and they want you to have drinks and food. They want, because this is to facilitate the social aspect and get people engaged, and give them something, something to, just to make it nicer for them. So they want you to eat. So definitely, if there's food available, definitely take advantage of that. If there's drinks available, definitely take advantage of that. Definitely have a drink. But it's, the food and drink is there for you to have. So definitely do it, but be moderate in your appetites. No more than one alcoholic drink per hour. You do not want to be seen as the guy who's getting hammered, or the woman who's tipsy and everything. That people can get very judgmental about drinking behaviors, and there's a lot of people with alcoholics in their families who will be triggered and by people who are drunk, and it's just not appropriate to be we talked at the outset. You want to stay in control. If you're drinking heavily or drinking enough so that you're buzzed, you're not going to be in control. You're going to say things that are maybe inappropriate, or you're going to say things that or behave in ways that maybe you'll be loud. Maybe you'll start yelling across the room because you're feeling great, and that's not the kind of attention that you want. Because remember, a business function, people are going to make judgments about you, and they're going to take that information into the workplace with you. And so you want to be conscious of that. So definitely limit your alcoholic intake. Some of the places talk about just limit yourself to one alcoholic drink or two alcoholic drink. I think one per hour. Now, generally speaking, your work functions are only going to be 1 or 2 hours. So, you get there, get your drink. The other thing to remember is, if you get a gin and tonic, for instance, you can get, when you finish it, go back to the bar and have them put a club soda with a lime in it. Looks like a gin and tonic. People that saw you order the gin and tonic will see you holding it. They'll assume it's a gin and tonic, but it's just club soda with water. So, or tonic with lime or whatever, whatever it is that you want. You want a rum and Coke? Great, have a rum and Coke, and then come back and just get a Coke, no rum. So you can have something in your hand, you can have something that you're drinking, but be very aware of how much alcohol, because alcohol will ruin your reputation very fast, and because it'll cause you to behave maybe in ways that are not controlled. And that'll lead to judgments about you that maybe not fair, but that's what's going to happen, right? When you're eating, there's a few things to be aware of. Keep your plate manageable. You mentioned about going back for seconds. You can always go back for seconds if it's a buffet, especially. Or thirds or fourths. So go up there, take a couple of things, but you usually have a plate. Don't pile it high so that you're walking around and stuff's falling off your plate, or when you're trying to get something. It's a mess. Keep it manageable, keep it small, have 1, 2, 3 things on it that you can eat, and then go back and get more. This isn't an all you can eat buffet where you just load it up and sit down at a table and gorge yourself. Take many trips, small portions. The other thing is, don't be aware of things like dips and sauces and things like that. Use them. They're there. They're there because they're good and they're part of the experience that they want you to have. But, there's nothing quite like putting a celery stick in a big thing of ranch dressing and bringing it up to your mouth and having that ranch dressing drop all the way down the front of your shirt. All right. So use the ranch dressing, but make sure that it's all that is dripped off before you bring it to your mouth. So
With
give it a
great
couple
ranch comes great responsibility.
what's that?
With great ranch comes great responsibility.
Exactly. And we've seen, or you've seen ranch dressing that's very thin. So, almost like milk, I think.
One might say.
Anyway, use the sauces, but recognize that they drip, and take extra care to make sure that you don't end up with spots on your clothes because you're in a hurry to get something to your mouth. So, and that's the other thing too is, if you're wearing a white shirt and you've got a marinara sauce, you want to be really, really careful that, you're not, and that's something your mother needs to learn. You need to be really, really careful that you don't be spilling that all over yourself. So,
Listen, women are working with an added challenge here.
yes, that's fair. That's fair. At the same time, when you're finished eating, find a mirror. If you don't carry one with you, go to the bathroom and look, because you don't want to be walking around this function with a piece of carrot stuck in your teeth or anything else, right? You don't need a piece of parsley that's at your gum line. Not everybody's going to point that out to you. And, you don't want to be the person known as, oh, that's the person with the gross, that had that thing in her mouth all night. So eat, absolutely. Drink, absolutely. But when you're finished eating, go check and make sure that you haven't polluted your teeth with any food residues. So that's important too. So now we're at the end of the night. You've had a business function. It's been 2 or 3 hours. You've mingled, you've mixed it up. You've been very respectful. You've stayed in control. You're engaged. You're facilitating conversation when that happens. You've deferred when you needed to. It's gone great. Now it's time to leave. What do you do? You just bail out? You just like, hey,
Irish goodbye.
What's that?
Irish goodbye. Walk out. 3. It's perfect. You just come down.
Not true. The Irish goodbye, not the way you do.
Like Claire. Go find the person that brought you there, meow at them, and then leave.
Yeah. No, what you do is you stay until the end, and we talked about that. You stay until about the end. Again, you don't want to be the last person out, but you want to be there toward the end of the time period that was laid out in the invitation. Now, some functions will go later, right? It'll say, oh, well, we're going to have drinks from 6 to 8, dinner from 7, or 6 to 7, dinner from 7 to 8, and then cocktails 8 until 9. Well, okay, plan to be there till 9. But then some people will stay even later, but you don't feel obligated to stay past the time on the invitation. But plan to stay for basically the time that is on the invitation, and then it's time to leave. As you leave, people on the way out, tell them that you'll see them again. Thank your host. Find the person who is hosting if you can, and make sure you shake their hand and say thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Great event. Give them some feedback right there. It's important to let people know that you appreciate it. Not only for those people who will remember, oh yeah, Addie mentioned just on the way out, that it was a good time, that she enjoyed it. That helps, and other people will see you do that. So if you're leaving at the same time as somebody else, they'll realize, oh, Addie thanked the host. That's really great. Addie's that good stand-up person who recognized somebody made an investment of time and energy, and acknowledged that time and energy and appreciated that time and energy that person has done. If it's an important event, if it's a team building exercise, and you talk to the host on the way out, or talk to the manager on the way out and say, hey, this was great, thank you. That's great. But if it's an important event, if it's a Christmas party or whatever, or if it's a big event and you weren't able to get to the host, drop them an email within the next couple of days and say, hey, I didn't get the chance to thank you for putting on this thing. That was, give them a little bit of feedback. Very quick, very good note, but acknowledge the effort that went into the event as you're leaving, to the person who made the event. And then if there are other people there as you're leaving, make sure that you say goodbye to them as well, and just like, hey, great to see you again. Make your goodbyes. Do not just ghost everybody and walk out and disappear. You want to show respect. You want to show that you appreciate, the effort that went in. And that's kind of, that's just good human decency too. But it's definitely an important part of of wrapping up the event is acknowledging and appreciating the people that put it on.
Don't Irish goodbye. Do the Southern goodbye, because we thank everybody.
Very good. I see you're identifying now as a Southerner. So
I do, honestly. When I go back to California, at the looks that I get doing anything, I'll like talk to someone in the grocery store line and they're like, ew.
Yeah. We don't like to talk to each other out here. We're not unfriendly. We just don't
Turn
talk.
off. They're not like in New York, you talk to someone in the grocery line and they're like, what's the big idea? You got a problem with me?
Yeah, they can be a little aggressive sometimes. Yeah, we're not like that in California. We're pretty much live and let live. Don't talk to me, I won't talk to you, but we'll be pleasant enough. But yeah, that's how we work. That's how we roll out here. So very good.
Yeah, we thank everyone on our way out.
And that's what you want to do at a business function. So what else do you have? Any other questions about this? Did we pretty much cover this? Cover the business functions?
Yep.
Very good. So that's pretty much what we have then. No follow-up items that I can recall. No Venmo. There was a couple times I had to watch my language, but
Really?
I was able to do that. So what are we going to talk about?
Swear like you're on a podcast that's being recorded and you have to pay someone $1 every time you do it.
That's right, which means don't swear. So I was able to restrain myself. That is true. So what are we going to talk about next week, Ed?
Next week, we talk about how should I behave when I'm traveling for business, which is a completely foreign topic to me. So,
well, good. Yeah, I'll be interested. I think I talked about it last week too when we were anticipating that. I thought we were going to be talking about that this week, but yeah, my first business trip. I can share which was, guess where my first business trip was?
San Francisco.
Nope. Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nice.
Yep. We'll tell you all about it next week.
All right, cool. Well, in the meantime, you fun listeners can find us on awkwardfamilyconversations.com, on Twitter at awkwardfamilyc1, on YouTube for the full video length, unedited Awkward Family Conversations, and of course, Awkward Family Conversations, and on Stitcher, Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, wherever you like to listen at Awkward Family Conversations. Words are difficult. And then, of course, on Facebook, where we post all of the things at Awkward Family Conversations. Let us know what you think. Keep the questions and suggestions coming in comments, DMs, and of course, private text messages. Or honestly, I'd be cool with a carrier pigeon at this point. Like, that'd be pretty sweet. So if you got one of those, please send me something. Please. Yeah. And we'll be back next week.
That sounds good. All right. Thank you, Addie. I love you.
I love you too, Dad.
Bye.